The human hasn't moved in 12 hours. The alien voice crackled over the encrypted comms, thick with derision. Static danced between the words. Pathetic. Probably dead. Or shaking like a cub in storm wind. Sergeant Mason Keller adjusted the pressure of his trigger finger by 0.5 millimeter. He didn't blink. Not yet. The crosshairs stayed fixed on the tower's northern balcony, Sector 9, where a red-skinned Gralvek leaned lazily against the railing, exhaling plasma smoke and exposing his spine. Too easy. Not worth the shot. Not yet. Rain whispered against the matte black barrel of Keller's X-99 precision rifle. Wind moaned between the skeletal remains of Sonaris Ivy's skyline. The world was supposed to be neutral ground. Now it was a hostage graveyard waiting for someone brave, or foolish, enough to light a match. The sniper stayed prone, cloaked by an optical shroud and silence more suffocating than fear. Ghost 1, status report. Keller's earpiece buzzed to life, voice sharp. Command? He didn't move. Just whispered. Eyes on. Safety off. Waiting. Targets confirmed? 17 Mercs. 7 species. 1 Gralvek Alpha. No civilian movement yet. Delara's signal still active. There was a pause on the line. The Council hasn't authorized engagement. No green light. Hold position. Keller's jaw clenched. The ghosts of dead orders echoed behind his teeth. Hold position. Wait for permission. Watch them bleed before you're allowed to fight back. He exhaled, slow and silent. Copy. 12 hours earlier, he'd been sleeping on a cot in Orbit Station Vanta 3, his discharge papers still unsigned. They weren't going to reinstate him. Not officially. But when they whispered, Delara Quinn, captured on Sonaris, that was enough. She was more than a diplomat. She had been his, the one person who saw a soldier beneath the scars. Now, she was in the hands of hired guns who drank from skulls and laughed in frequencies Keller didn't care to translate. He shifted, just enough to slide a finger over the stitched patch on his right sleeve, frayed, half-burned, dark green embroidery barely visible. Her hands had sewn it. Before peace. Before the tribunal. A long time ago. On the tower's opposite balcony, a mercenary emerged. Taller than the others. Full armor, silver-trimmed pauldrons. Kravax. The Gralvek Alpha. Commander of the mercenary syndicate Iron Maw. His voice echoed over loudspeakers, sharp, guttural tones translated by automated systems into bitter mockery. This is what the humans send. He spread his arms, grinning with rows of needle teeth. One ghost with a rifle and broken memories? They're even more pitiful than we imagined. Keller didn't flinch. He adjusted for wind drift. Come down, sniper, Kravax bellowed. Let's talk honorably, Phase 2. Ping. A targeting dot bloomed on Kravax's chest for a split second before disappearing. The scope recalibrated. Too far. Too open. Not the shot yet. The tension built slowly. Mason wasn't in a firefight. Not yet. But every second stretched like a wire across a throat. He wasn't alone on this rooftop, not entirely. The broken skyline across Sonaris 4 had eyes. Drone feeds. Command satellites. Emergency signals from a captured diplomatic corps blinking like dying stars. But none of them could pull a trigger. Only him. And still, no green light. A soft beep ticked in his comms. Private line. Mason. The voice made him freeze. Delara. Faint, broken, her signal routed through a wrist implant Keller had helped install for emergencies. She sounded tired. Hurt. I don't have long. They're trying to breach the final vault. If they get the override codes. I'm here, he whispered, louder than any bullet he'd ever fired. A pause. Then, you shouldn't have come. I don't follow orders well. A breath. Almost a laugh. Still stubborn. Still aiming. The line crackled. Her voice dropped lower. Promise me something. I don't make promises anymore. You will now. Another breath. If I don't make it, don't lose yourself again. Don't become what they're afraid of. Static swallowed the rest. Keller closed his eyes, just for a second. The rooftop seemed colder now. The scope less steady. He felt the weight of her voice in his bones. The human war machine was flawed, too emotional, too reckless. That's what the aliens said. That's why they used mercenaries to fight for them, sterilized, efficient, unfeeling. But Mason Keller was not a product of efficiency. He was a product of loss. The comm buzzed again. Ghost 1 command here. Status update. His voice was low. I see. Kravax just called me out in 3 languages. Pretty sure he used one of ours this time. Do not engage. Repeat, do not. Keller blinked. His scope lit green. A whisper from command. Green light authorized. Fire at will. He smiled for the first time in months. Not because he wanted vengeance. Because the waiting was over. Green light confirmed. Fire at will, Ghost 1. Those 7 words flipped a silent switch in Mason Keller's mind. His pulse didn't spike. His breath didn't hitch. His finger, already aligned with the trigger guard, slid into place like it had 1,000 times before, except this time, it mattered. He squeezed. A fraction of a second later, a Gralvik head snapped backward. Crimson mist bloomed against the balcony wall. The Merc's body crumpled without a sound. Target 1, neutralized. The X-99 recycled with a whisper, the silencer kissing death into the wind. Through the scope, the rooftop came alive. Panic erupted, aliens scattering, shouting in 6 tongues, scrambling for cover they no longer trusted. Mason didn't wait. He shifted 3 degrees west. Another alien, a scaly, chitin-armored Zarn, ducked behind a column. Too slow. A tight squeeze sent a bullet through the weak spot beneath the mandible. The creature fell, limbs twitching. 2 shots. 2 bodies. Mason Keller wasn't just a sniper. He was a ghost with teeth. Inside the tower, alarms screamed. The Peace Summit's embassy complex, once a gleaming symbol of intergalactic diplomacy, now echoed with boot falls and terror. Armed mercenaries surged to respond, thinking they were under siege by a squad. They didn't know it was just him. Mason blinked twice. His heads-up display pulsed, tracking movement, tagging hostile biosignatures, calculating response vectors. A window opened brief, razor-thin. He took it. With fluid efficiency, Keller unlatched from the sniper's nest and pivoted into a crouch. His rifle magnetically clipped to his back. A matte black PDW slid into his hand. Compact. Ruthless. The rooftop access hatch groaned as he descended into the stairwell, narrow, damp, laced with the reek of ozone and scorched steel. Each step downward felt like a countdown to something unspoken. He moved like shadow on glass. Controlled. Calculated. Command, this is Ghost 1. Rooftop compromised. I'm going inside. Negative. Perimeter only. Do not breach interior. He cut the channel. They weren't down here. He was. The stairwell lit red as backup generators kicked in. Emergency lights strobed across the concrete, and voices, some screaming, some barking orders, bounced through the floors below. A pair of Mercs turned the corner on the 3rd landing. They didn't finish their sentence. One dropped with a suppressed thud. The other raised a plasma baton too late. Keller slammed his forearm into the alien's throat, spun, and drove a blade into the soft point beneath the jawline. No time for mercy. No need for noise. As he advanced, the layout of the tower played in his head like a memory. He'd studied the blueprints when Delara first invited him here, back when this place was a sanctuary. Before Kravax turned it into a prison with stained glass. Flashback. They had walked the central atrium together, her hand tracing the etched human Korathi peace mural. It's fragile, Mason, she had whispered. One wrong move, and everything cracks. Now, the cracks had become chasms. And he was filling them with corpses. On floor 7, the smell hit him, burnt insulation and flesh. His steps slowed. A hallway lay in ruin. Doors splintered. Walls scorched. And just ahead, a civilian. Slumped against the corridor bulkhead. Not Delara. A Firani young, maybe 10 cycles. Their kind aged differently, but the child was unmistakable, glowing skin dimmed, telepathic aura flickering erratically. Still alive. Mason knelt. Hey! He whispered, scanning for wounds. The child blinked up, pupils like liquid quartz. No words, just a tremor. Their mind reaching. Suddenly, Keller felt it. Not a thought. A memory. Delara. Gagged. Bleeding. Chained to a chair in the ambassadorial chamber. Kravax grinning. A countdown. 10 minutes. Then darkness. The child gasped, collapsed against his chest. Mason steadied them, whispering, "Stay hidden. Help will come." He pulled a signal beacon from his belt, activated it, and placed it gently in their hand. That image, Delara broken, restrained, now burned behind his eyes. The mission had just changed. Flash of metal. A Merc burst from the side hallway, plasma rifle raised. Mason rolled instinctively, firing mid-spin. The round tore through the alien's throat. He didn't stop. Blood trailed behind him now, some of it his. A gash from earlier pulsed beneath his ribs, but he pushed through. Every corridor was a maze of echoing threats and gut-deep instincts. He reached the central lift shaft. No elevator. Mason hooked his grapple, fired upward, and soared through darkness toward the 15th floor. Command buzzed again. "Ghost One, what the hell are you doing?" "Your orders." "Changed," Mason snapped. "Delara's alive. They're going for the override codes. If they get them, Earth's planetary defense grid is an open book. We'll send a team. Extraction in. Too late." He ended the call. The elevator doors above burst open as he vaulted over the edge, landing in a crouch. Down the hall, double doors loomed. Thick, reinforced. Embassy chamber. Behind them, Kravax waited. Mason reloaded. The corridor was too quiet. He walked forward, boots echoing over glass and blood. The stairwell stretched upward like the spine of a long-dead beast, metal bones groaning with every tremor, each echo a whisper of something hunting or hunted. Mason Keller climbed in silence, one hand on the rail, the other gripping his compact submachine gun, knuckles white beneath blood-streaked gloves. Above him, 15 meters to the ambassadorial chamber. Beyond that, Kravax. Delara. The override codes. The last barrier between Earth and planetary exposure. The air changed here. No longer just charged with ozone and smoke, it carried something else. A pressure. The kind soldiers feel right before the world tilts. And Keller felt it in his teeth. Floor 16. The corridor ahead flickered under failing light panels. Shards of glass crunched underfoot, the remains of shattered interface screens. Red glyphs pulsed on the walls in alien script, warnings, if he read them right. He paused at the end of the hall, pressed his back against the wall beside the reinforced chamber door. Inside was where it ended. Where it had to end. Then he heard it. Laughter. Low. Gravelly. Alien. Kravax. "Let the human come," the voice rumbled beyond the door. "Let him bleed where the treaties were written. It's poetic." Keller's jaw clenched. His thumb flicked the fire selector. Safety off. "Should I get her before or after he begs?" Kravax continued. "No," another voice answered. Cold. Familiar. Human. Keller froze. General Elric. Command's liaison. The one who pulled Keller out of disgrace. The one who knew Delara's schedule. The traitor. Mason's fingers tightened. His breath slowed to a stillness honed by years of war. Rage didn't own him, it focused him. The lock beeped. Someone inside had just keyed the outer seal. He had seconds. Keller pulled a shock disc from his belt and pressed it to the wall beside the door. It hummed once, then detonated with a hiss of electricity and light, frying the chamber's locking mechanism. The door shuddered open. He moved. The chamber beyond was a twisted altar of diplomacy desecrated. Holographic flags flickered behind overturned chairs. A peace table lay split down the center, scorched and soaked in something darker than oil. Delara Quinn knelt at the far end, wrists bound, face bloodied, but alive. Kravax stood over her like a predator about to feed. To the side, General Elric turned, shock etched into every wrinkle of his graying face. "You weren't cleared for this," Elric growled. Keller didn't answer. He fired. One round. Clean. Straight into Elric's thigh. The traitor crumpled with a howl, clutching his leg. Kravax roared, spinning to face him. "So the ghost arrives." "Guess I missed the RSVP," Keller replied coldly. Kravax charged. Not with a weapon, but with claws. The Grauvex armor split open along his spine, revealing living muscle interlaced with cybernetic mesh. His arms lengthened. Bone cracked as it reshaped. The mercenary was shedding diplomacy like skin, becoming the monster he truly was. Keller dove sideways, dodging a swipe that crushed a stone pillar where his head had been. He came up firing, short, controlled bursts. The bullets sparked off Kravax's armor but didn't slow him. "Think." He rolled behind the council dais, slapping a fresh mag into his weapon. Kravax's voice echoed across the chamber. "Your kind always hides behind tools. Guns. Laws. Emotion. You forgot something," Keller called out. Kravax laughed. "What's that, sniper?" "We don't miss." Keller sprang up and fired at the ceiling, not at Kravax. A loose beam gave way. Shards of electrified paneling collapsed onto the mercenary, stunning him for half a second. It was enough. Mason vaulted forward, closed the distance, and drove a combat knife into the joint at Kravax's neck plate. Sparks erupted. Kravax bellowed, tossing him like a rag doll. Keller hit the wall hard. His ribs screamed. Vision blurred. Through one eye he saw Delara. She wasn't cowering. She was watching. Waiting. Believing. Kravax lumbered forward, limping now, but still dangerous. "I've crushed warlords on 5 moons," he snarled. "You think one broken Terran stops me?" Keller rose, coughing blood. "No," he rasped. "But a Terran with nothing left to lose? That's your problem." He triggered the last charge on his belt. A concussive burst rocked the chamber, sending both combatants flying. Dust choked the air. Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Kravax tried to stand but fell to one knee. Keller stood over him, holding the same sidearm Delara had once gifted him, polished steel, earth-made. He aimed it between Kravax's eyes. "You're just a contractor," Keller whispered. This was personal. He fired. Delara called out weakly. "Mason!" He rushed to her, cut her restraints. For a moment neither spoke. Then Delara leaned against him, trembling. "You didn't follow orders." He gave a half-smile. "Didn't hear any worth obeying." Sirens wailed in the distance. Reinforcements inbound. But they'd be too late to matter. Mason Keller had already finished the war. The embassy rooftop was silent again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was heavier now. Final. Smoke curled into the storm-choked sky. The air reeked of plasma residue, ionized metal, and the faint copper tang of spilled blood. Mason Keller stood at the edge of the building, staring down at the ruined skyline of Sonaris 4. Behind him, the war was over. Or so it seemed. Delara sat against a cracked support beam, breathing shallowly, arms wrapped around her chest as medical bots stabilized her vitals. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "You didn't have to stay." "I did." Mason's voice was low, unreadable. "I wasn't leaving you with that thing." She looked at him then, really looked, at the battered armor, the cracked visor, the dried blood caking his jaw. "You look like hell." "I always do after peace talks." The mercenary syndicate was in disarray. With Kravax dead, the chain of command had shattered. Remaining forces either fled or surrendered when the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet dropped out of orbit 20 minutes after it mattered. Typical. Diplomats would now scramble to reclaim honor and explain away delays. War crimes tribunals would issue empty threats. There'd be talks, statements, condemnation. But none of that had stopped Kravax. Only one thing had. A single rooftop sniper with a score to settle. A soft chime buzzed in Mason's earpiece. Ghost 1, this is Command Actual. Mission classified as complete. Evac team en route. Stand down. He didn't respond. Mason? Delara prompted. He finally spoke. There's one bullet left. What? He tapped the side of his armor. A display blinked. Round 01// manual target input. This last shot isn't for a Merc, he said. It's for Elric. Delara's eyes darkened. He's already bleeding out in custody. Mason shook his head. He's being medevaced to a classified cruiser. The kind with exit routes. They'll bury the scandal. Protect the chain of command. So what, you'll just execute him? No, he said, voice colder now. I'll end what he started. Flashback. Years ago. Earth's outer colonies. Mason had once disobeyed a direct order, refusing to fire on civilians during the Lacrose uprising. Elric had buried the incident. Not to protect Mason, but to use him as a quiet weapon when official channels weren't clean enough. And now Elric had sold out a peace summit. For profit. For leverage. The system had made monsters. But Keller refused to let them thrive anymore. He knelt beside his rifle, its matte frame scarred but functional. Delara stood slowly, limping to him. This isn't you, she said. It is now. She hesitated, then pulled something from her coat pocket. The embroidered green patch. Frayed. Torn. Repaired. You gave this to me, she whispered. When you said you wanted to stop being a ghost. Mason stared at it, then at her. Her voice wavered but held. Don't make this your legacy. You don't need to be feared. You can be known. His finger hovered over the rifle's biometric lock. Then, he stepped back. Let the weapon rest on the ground. Delara exhaled, relieved. Until a voice sliced through the air behind them. You really thought it ended here? Elric. Bruised. Limping. But standing. Somehow, he had escaped custody. He held a pulse pistol, unstable, shaking in his grip, aimed squarely at Delara. You little idealists. You don't get to win. Keller moved fast. Not fast enough. The shot fired. Delara gasped. But it wasn't hers. Elric staggered backward. A red dot bloomed on his chest. He collapsed. Behind Keller, the rifle's targeting system beeped once and went dark. Keller lowered his hand from the remote trigger. I didn't pull the trigger, he murmured, glancing at Delara. Her lips curled faintly. No. You did what had to be done. Hours later, as dawn cracked the Sonaris sky, Mason sat on the transport's edge, boots dangling into the void. Council dignitaries moved like ghosts across the ruins. Drones scanned for data. Medics catalogued bodies. But no one came near him. Not yet. Delara approached with a date pad. The council issued a global declaration. He didn't look at her. They're classifying Kravax's death as a rogue threat suppression. You're not mentioned. Figures. She hesitated. But the mercenaries, they're calling you Vigilant One. He finally turned. That's supposed to scare me? No. She smiled faintly. It's their word for someone they never underestimate again. He rose. Not a ghost anymore. Just a man with blood on his hands, and a heartbeat that still worked. Delara extended the green patch again. He took it this time. And stitched it to his armor. In a galaxy where war was outsourced and justice negotiated, humanity sent no armies, no fleets, just one man who remembered what it meant to finish what you start.